An American tourist in Paris demanded the Eiffel Tower be lit in red, white, and blue for the entire week of his visit because it was his 40th birthday, and he's a veteran. He claimed France owed America for World War II, so this was the least they could do. This is exactly the kind of cultural absurdity I track full-time. Not to mock, but to decode. If you value that level of insight over outrage, you'll want to subscribe. That's where the real analysis happens. When the staff explained they can't just change the lighting schedule, he pulled out a laminated certificate of appreciation from his local VFW and said this proves he has international monument jurisdiction. He asked to speak to the manager of France. A woman in Rome walked into a gelato shop and insisted they make her a pumpkin spice latte. When they explained they only serve gelato, she said she has geographical dairy confusion and can only process milk-based beverages if they're served in paper cups with her name spelled wrong. She offered to pay in Starbucks gift cards because they're basically international currency. She left a one-star review saying Italy doesn't understand coffee culture. A man in Germany got upset that the Holocaust Memorial in Berlin was too depressing for his family vacation photos. He asked if there was a happier version nearby, maybe with more colorful sculptures that would work better for his Christmas card. When told that wasn't possible, he suggested they install a mirror section so people could take selfies without all the sad stone blocks in the background. He said his tax dollars helped rebuild Germany, so he should get input on the monuments. A couple in Amsterdam walked into a coffee shop and demanded to know why there was no drip coffee. They explained they specifically came to Amsterdam for the coffee shops they'd heard about. After the barista explained what kind of shop it actually was, they insisted marijuana must be served in K-cup form or it violates American brewing standards. They asked if they could speak to corporate. The husband said he has a prescription for back pain from 1987. So technically he's a medical professional. A tourist in Barcelona yelled at a waiter for bringing the check without asking first. She said in America, bringing the check means you want customers to leave. So this was essentially European microaggression. She demanded they implement a buzzer system like Applebee's, where she presses a button when she's ready. She claimed she has service anticipation anxiety and unprompted check delivery triggers her fight-or-flight response. She left zero tip and said she's contacting the American Embassy about hostile dining practices. A family in London demanded a restaurant reheat their fish and chips in a microwave because hot food gives their daughter thermal sensitivity syndrome. They said her pediatrician diagnosed it during a phone call they had themselves while looking at WebMD. When told the kitchen doesn't have a microwave, the father said that's a disability rights violation under the Americans with Disabilities Act, which he believes applies everywhere because freedom is universal. They asked if the royal family knew about this discrimination. A man in Switzerland walked into a bank to exchange currency and asked why Swiss francs weren't just called dollars, since money is money. He explained that having different currency names gives him numerical displacement disorder, where numbers lose meaning across borders. He pulled out a self-signed doctor's note written on hotel stationery. He suggested Switzerland switch to dollars to make things easier for tourists like him, since American tourism keeps their economy alive. He was genuinely confused why this wasn't already the policy. A woman at the Louvre in Paris tried to FaceTime the entire museum to her mom in real time. When security asked her to stop, because flash photography isn't allowed, she said her phone doesn't have flash. It has a screen, so technically she's not breaking any rules. She claimed she has visual memory deficit syndrome and can only remember art if it's been filtered through an iPhone screen and shown to her mother who validates it. She demanded a full refund for her ticket because the museum was being discriminatory against people with screen-dependent memory processing. Tourist in Prague complained that the astronomical clock was scheduled wrong because it didn't match his iPhone time. He insisted they reset the medieval clock to match his phone, since Apple is more accurate than ancient Czech engineering. When told the clock has been operating since 1410, he said that's exactly the problem, and they need to upgrade to digital. He offered to personally supervise the installation of an Apple Watch on the tower. He called it technological cultural exchange. Most people laugh at these stories. I use them to map the psychology of entitlement. And there's a pattern here that's bigger than comedy. I break those patterns down every week. So, if that's your wavelength, lock in with a subscribe. A couple in Greece got angry that the Parthenon was in ruins and not properly maintained. They demanded to know why Greece doesn't just rebuild it, since they have all the pictures of what it used to look like. The husband said he works in construction back in Missouri and could have the whole thing done in 6 months with a good crew. When told it's a historical site, he suggested they at least add a roof and some AC because experiencing history shouldn't mean suffering from heat. He said he's descended from ancient Romans, so he technically has ancestral renovation rights. A woman in Venice demanded the gondolier sing in English because she doesn't understand. Italian in silence makes her nautically anxious. She said her therapist told her she processes boat rides through auditory linguistic familiarity, and Italian creates maritime disorientation syndrome. When he explained he only knows Italian songs, she asked if he could just hum the tune to Sweet Caroline while she sings the words. She tried to tip him in Target gift cards. She left a review saying Venice has a language barrier problem that's really inconsiderate to English speakers. A man at a German Christmas market insisted they sell him bratwurst that was kosher, halal, vegan, and gluten-free all at once because he has comprehensive dietary restriction syndrome. He explained his doctor told him he can only eat meat that identifies as vegetables for spiritual purposes. When they said that's not possible, he accused them of discrimination against people with complex food relationships. He pulled out a printed email from his cousin, who's a nurse, saying his condition is very real. He demanded they create a special sausage just for him, or he'd contact his congressman. A tourist in Scotland got upset that Edinburgh Castle didn't have an elevator. She said her son has vertical mobility preference disorder, where he can only ascend buildings using mechanical assistance because stairs create gravitational anxiety. When told it's a medieval castle, she suggested they install a ski lift on the outside, since those are historic-looking enough. She claimed the Americans with Disabilities Act applies to all castles built before 1990 under international heritage law she read about on Facebook. She asked to speak to the Queen about accessibility violations. A family in Copenhagen demanded a restaurant serve them dinner at 4:30 p.m. because that's when they eat in Florida. When told the kitchen opens at 6 p.m., the mother explained her children have circadian digestion syndrome and can only process food during American time zones regardless of physical location. She said forcing them to wait violates their biological clocks and is essentially mealtiming discrimination. She offered to pay extra if they opened early just for them. The father suggested they really should consider switching to American hours since tourists drive the economy. A woman in Vienna walked into a coffee house and asked why they don't have free refills. When the waiter explained that's not how European cafes work, she said she has beverage continuity disorder and needs constant coffee flow to maintain mental stability. She claimed her psychiatrist told her unlimited refills are part of her treatment plan for anxiety. She brought a printed article from a lifestyle blog about the health benefits of free refills. She suggested Austrian coffee culture was oppressive to people with her condition and left a 3-page handwritten complaint with the owner. TT. Man in Brussels got angry that nobody in the chocolate shop spoke fluent English. He explained that since Belgium makes chocolate and America buys chocolate, English should be the mandatory language of all Belgian chocolate retailers under international trade agreements. He said he has linguistic chocolate processing syndrome, where he can only taste flavors properly if they're described to him in English first. When the staff tried to help in broken English, he said their accents were giving him auditory confusion, and that's basically assault. He demanded they hire American employees, or at least watch more Hollywood movies to improve their pronunciation. 8th, couple at the Anne Frank house in Amsterdam complained that the tour was too sad and not appropriate for their 10-year-old who was on spring break. They suggested the museum create a junior version of the experience with less historical accuracy and more interactive elements. The wife said her daughter has emotional exposure, sensitivity, and can only learn about difficult topics through gamification and positive reinforcement. They asked if there was a gift shop with toys. The husband suggested they rename it the Anne Frank Learning Adventure to make it more family-friendly and marketable to American tourists. A tourist in Ireland walked into a pub and demanded they turn off the traditional Irish music because it was interfering with his phone call. When told the music is part of the pub's atmosphere, he explained he has cultural auditory priority disorder where American conversations legally supersede local entertainment. He said he's on a work call and his job is more important than their folk music. He asked how much it would cost to buy out the musician for the night. He genuinely believed the pub should accommodate his conference call over their century-old musical tradition because his company has international business significance. A woman in Portugal got upset that the beach didn't have enough shade structures. She demanded they install more umbrellas because she has solar exposure anticipation syndrome, where she can only relax if she knows she's protected from all possible sun angles. When told she could rent an umbrella, she said having to pay for shade is basically charging people to not get cancer. She suggested Portugal was violating international beach standards that she was certain existed. She tried to speak to the mayor about implementing free umbrella zones for tourists with sun-related anxiety conditions. A family in Norway demanded their hotel turn up the heat to 78 degrees in January because their kids have temperature expectation disorder. They explained the children's bodies are calibrated to Florida climate and exposure to temperatures below 70 degrees causes them Norwegian weather confusion syndrome. When told the room doesn't go that high, the father said they're being discriminated against for being from a warm climate. He threatened to leave a review saying Norway is hostile to tropical Americans. The mother suggested they should have a special American wing of the hotel that maintains Florida temperatures year-round. A man in Sweden walked into a government office and insisted they process his made-up parking ticket complaint because he's an American citizen and he'd heard Scandinavian countries have good customer service. When they explained, they don't handle foreign tourist complaints about parking. He said he has administrative jurisdiction confusion, where his brain can't differentiate between government departments across countries. He pulled out his ADA membership card as proof he has international authority standing. He asked to speak to whoever's in charge of Sweden. He was genuinely baffled that his American identity didn't grant him universal bureaucratic access. A woman at the Vatican got angry that she couldn't wear her tank top inside St. Peter's Basilica. She explained the tank top cost $200 from Lululemon, so it's technically formal wear based on price point classification. When told she needed to cover her shoulders, she said she has fabric sensitivity syndrome and can only wear moisture-wicking athletic materials for spiritual purposes. She tried to argue that expensive activewear should be exempt from dress codes under luxury brand exception policies. She asked if the Pope knew he was discriminating against American athleisure culture. She wrapped herself in a scarf while loudly explaining this was religious oppression. If this made you laugh and think, that's exactly what this channel's built for. I track global absurdities through a psychological lens most people never even notice. Subscribing doesn't help me. It helps you stay 3 steps ahead of the herd.